Hello and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if this is the first time that you are joining me. For today's video, I wanted to talk about another court card that I have a personal connection with. So previously in the 31 Days of Tarot series, I talked about the major Arcana cards that were connected to my sun sign, my moon sign and my rising sign, and how I felt that they did or didn't match with who I was and who I saw myself as a person. And recently I also did the What Court Card Are You tag started by Ozark Oracle, where I picked a card from the court cards that I felt best suited who I saw myself as a person. And both of those videos I will link in the cards and in the description box below so that you can check them out if you are interested. Today I want to talk about Myers-Briggs Type Indicators, or MBTI as it's more commonly known. And this is where you are given 4 letters that basically sum up who you are as a person. Now, I want to start with a disclaimer. I don't think it's a necessary disclaimer, and I'm sure most people understand this or realise this, but I think it's worthwhile saying that Myers-Briggs is one indicator that we can use to learn more about ourselves. It doesn't define who we are, and it's not everything about who we are, but it is one valid tool that's available for us to learn more about who we are as people, in the same way that astrology can be considered one valid tool, especially natal charts, that we can use to understand who we are as people. Obviously, as individuals, we are so much more complicated than a natal chart or 4 letters that we're assigned from a test. We are made up of our experiences and our circumstances as much as anything else. But these things, I personally believe, are valuable. Valuable tools, definitely worth looking into. So I was very, very lucky that in my old job I actually got to have my Myers-Briggs done by a professional, somebody who studied Myers-Briggs and is able to look at the answers that you give to certain questions and determine what your type is. And just to give you an idea, so there's 4, you're given 4 letters, and they can be up to 16 combinations, which is why it works so great with the court cards. You're either an E, which is extroversion, or an I, which is introversion, and this tends to be about where you focus your attention, so whether you're an internal person or an external person, basically. You then have an S or an N, which is sensing or intuition, and this is about the way that you take in information. So sensing people tend to take in information through all 5 senses and are very much about the here and now and the details, whereas intuition people, the I people, they take in information from patterns and from big pictures, and they like to focus on future possibilities. Next you have thinking or feeling, which is T and F, and this is about the way that we make decisions. So thinkers are the logical people. They're the people that make decisions based on the most logical consequences and the most logical outcomes, and through analysis of cause and effect first, whereas feelers are people who make decisions based on the human element first, so how it will affect people emotionally and based on their values. Finally, you have J's and P's, which is judging or perceiving, and this is how you deal with the outer world. So judging people are ones who like to be very planned and very organised, and who prefer to have things all in a line, and P people, with the perceiving people, tend to be a little bit more flexible and spontaneous, and they prefer to keep their options open. So a great way for me to understand the difference between J and P is to think about it as if you were given a task with a deadline. A J person would, if you had to, your deadline was in 3 weeks' time, a J person would start today, and they would start planning out exactly what their presentation, say, was going to look like, how they were going to lay it out, what information they needed to look at, and they would build a plan of what they were going to do every day within those 3 weeks to get to the end result. P people tend to be a bit more flexible, and they tend to leave things to the last minute, and then they kind of just do it all in one go a couple of days before it's due, and the results are often the same and the outcome is often the same. It's just about different ways to get to the end result. So I actually would be interested to know what people would guess my 4 personality letters are, because it can be really interesting to see how other people view you based on that information. But I am actually an INFP, so I am an introverted person, which means that I like to focus on the internal world more than the external world. I'm an I person, so I take in information through patterns and big pictures. I'm an F person, so I make my decisions based on values and the people element. And I'm a P, so I'm quite flexible and spontaneous in the way that I approach life. I can come across as a J, and I was very surprised to find that I was a P, because I do like details and I do like analysis and I do like those kind of things, but my natural preference is a P preference. And interestingly, with my I and my E, I'm very, very close to being in the middle. So I only have a very slight preference for introversion, but with my other 3, I'm very strongly within those brackets. Now, as I say, I was very lucky. I had mine done by a professional, but I have done numerous online tests since that time, and every single time, without question, I come out as an INFP. It's pretty consistent for me that that's how I score. And another test that you can do if you don't know your Myers-Briggs personality type is one online called 16 Personalities. And this one is quite handy because you get a really detailed, I mean, this isn't all the information, I only printed off some of the information, but you get a really detailed PDF of you and who you are and what that means. And it also gives you a title to give you an understanding of what that personality type is like. So for an INFP, I don't know if you can see that, my personality type is mediator. So that's, you know, something else to think about. I'm not going to read all of this for you, but I thought what I would do is, for those who are interested, I would just very quickly go through what I considered the strengths and weaknesses of an INFP before I move on to the court card. So the strengths and weaknesses, the strengths of an INFP is that they are idealistic, they seek value and harmony, they're open-minded and flexible, very creative, passionate and energetic, and they're dedicated and hardworking. So those are the strengths of my personality type. The weaknesses of my personality type is that they are too idealistic, they're too altruistic, they can be impractical, they dislike dealing with data, they take things personally, and they can be very difficult to get to know. In terms of the court card, because that's what we're here for, right? The tarot stuff. But in terms of the court card that best suits my personality type, INFPs are related to the Page of Cups. So that's not a very great picture there, but I will put in a picture here so that you can see a few different Page of Cups, just for visual pleasure, if you like. And I've actually written down some of the qualities of the Page of Cups as well. So the Page of Cups can be sensitive, intuitive, they are sweet, gentle, warm, loving, they can be shy, they hide their feelings, they're good at pretending everything is fine, they like to avoid pain and conflict, but then don't we all? They desperately want to be liked, and that is their main objective when interacting with others. They're playful, they're youthful, they've got lots of hobbies and interests. They tend to be very emotional, they're dreamers, they've got their head in the clouds, they're charming, they're modest, they're quiet, and they're calm. So it's really interesting for me that I picked my personality. When I thought about my own personality type and I picked my own court card, I picked the Queen of Swords, because the Queen of Swords and the Page of Cups couldn't be more different, right? They couldn't be more different if they tried. But I think that's the beauty of these kind of tools and these kind of exercises with the court cards and the, you know, the astrology and major arcana, is that it just beautifully illustrates how complicated and how complex human beings actually are. And, you know, I like to joke that I'm a hot mess of contradictions, because I genuinely am. I am often two extremes of personality type at the same time. So I find this kind of stuff fascinating because I can start to see in those different things that you can pull in personality wise and court card wise, how all of those different contradictions and, you know, complex personalities all kind of start to weave in together. So I really love that. That's something that I find really, really interesting. And just, you know, from the Page of Cups point of view, some of those things really stand out for me and some of those things really don't. So I am incredibly sensitive and very emotional. I am but I'm also very calm. I also think I can be very quiet and calm. And the two together are kind of like the ocean for me. So on the surface, I'm always very quiet, very calm, very almost stable and grounded in my world space, but underneath I'm incredibly sensitive and there's this massive waves of emotion going on all the freaking time. And I do think that I'm very much like that. I do think I'm quite intuitive. I'm generally quite good at picking up on things, and you know, my intuition is getting much better as I work with the tarot, but I do believe that I'm quite intuitive in general. I'm definitely somebody who hides their feelings and is good at pretending that I'm fine. And that isn't, to me, that isn't necessarily a positive. And I think that also leads back into the can be very difficult to get to know, because I can be very sheltered about how I feel about things, and I can often hide the way that I feel about things, and that can make me very difficult to get to know. I mean, avoid pain and conflict. Like I said, I mean, don't we all? Does anybody go out looking for pain and conflict? But I think it can be detrimental. Like, it can get to a point where it's detrimental and you're avoiding situations that you wouldn't necessarily need to avoid because you don't want to have to deal with any potential for pain or conflict. And that isn't necessarily a good thing. And that is something that I can see within myself that I do feel that I need to work on to some degree, and that I need to be more willing to take those risks and accept the consequences of pain and conflict, should they be the consequences. I am really youthful. I do sometimes have the personality of a 5-year-old. I am one of those excitable, playful, silly personalities. I don't know if that always necessarily comes across in my YouTube videos, because they're not necessarily where I'm using that side of my personality, if you like, but in my real life I can be incredibly childish. Just incredibly childish and playful, and really in touch with my like inner child excitableness. So I think that's very, very true. Definitely a dreamer. Definitely a dreamer. My head is always in the clouds. Always. I wouldn't describe myself as sweet. That's not a word that I would use to describe myself as. I don't believe that I'm sweet. I don't believe that I am what I would consider sweet. When I talk about people who I think are sweet, I do not fit into that bracket of how I would describe that. And it's interesting that warm is on that list, because one of my biggest fears is that because I am so guarded about my emotions and showing how I feel, that I worry sometimes that I come across as cold and that people think that I'm cold. So warm is, again, not necessarily a way that I would describe myself personally. I don't know though, because I do, you know, warm and loving. I am genuinely loving towards other people. I'm genuinely concerned about other people. I genuinely have a high level of compassion and empathy for others. In that respect, I'm genuinely interested in other people and making them feel listened to, empowered, important, like they matter, you know, those kind of things. So I don't know, for me that's a tough one to I don't know if I have the right level of self-awareness to really know whether I'm warm and loving or whether I'm cold and standoffish. I don't know. I'm definitely not shy. Shyness is not a thing that I struggle with at all. I have social anxiety, as I've mentioned before, and that can make it difficult for me in social situations where I'm not comfortable. And I guess I could possibly come across as shy because I am guarded and I don't wear my heart on my sleeve when it comes to people that I don't know and I'm not comfortable with. So I guess for some that may come across as shy. but I don't feel shyness. Shyness is not something that I personally feel like is a trait of mine. And I think modest, yes. Is it modest to say that you're modest? There's the ultimate question of the day. Is it modest to say that you're modest? I don't actually know. But I've done a lot of work when I was studying for life coaching and as part of my NLP practitioner studying. There's a lot that you do of work that you have to do around understanding your own core values and your core sense of self, because you know it's all about being a results role model and understanding yourself on a level that you're then going to ask your clients to understand themselves on. So I've done a lot of work around that. So I know that modesty or humility, whatever word you want to use for that, is one of my core values. It's something that's very, very important to me. I also know that there's a shadow side to that, and that I struggle with people who I don't feel are modest enough. And that's my judgments being projected onto them, and I'm aware of that, and I know that that's a shadow side of myself that I have to deal with within my sense of modesty. Modesty is one of those things, it's such a core value for me that I find it very off-putting in others if they're not what I would judge as modest enough. But that's, as I say, that's not a reflection on other people, that is an internal thing. It's a reflection on myself and my shadow stuff. So the page, when I see the Page of Cups, my initial reaction is, that's not me. That's totally not me. I have nothing in common with the Page of Cups. I would never put myself as a Page of Cups. I'm absolutely definitely a Queen of Swords, but I think there's room to acknowledge that you can be both at the same time, sometimes at exactly the same time, and that we're complicated, as I said, and we're complex, and we all have all kinds of different things going on in us all the time. So that was a not quite so brief description of my MBTI personality type and how it fits with the Page of Cups. If you're interested in any more information about MBTI, or you want me to talk about it in any more detail, let me know in the comments below. I'll leave a link, as I say, to the 16 personalities if you want to do your own and you haven't done already. And once you've done it, if you'd like to also leave me a comment as to what your personality type is, or if you'd like to make a response video, that would be great. I will try and find a link to a website that lists all the MBTI personalities and the court cards, so that you've got that for reference as well. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining me for this little ramble. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all soon for the next one. Take care, everyone, and lots of love. Bye bye.